Recharge is live on Instagram. Hello, Instagram. Hello, YouTube.
Hello, everybody. That is a fantasy football and injury fan, or injury prevention or lack of injuries fan.
Yeah.
Welcome back to our weekly injury report, live from Recharge. Dr. Shirokobrod,
Dr. Cory Hough.
And on this show, we go through the previous week of injuries and kind of get you set up for fantasy football. So if you're playing fantasy football, a lot of the people watching are in our league here at Recharge. Most of the things we say are accurate. Some of them are to throw you off. So we benefit.
Yeah, we had a funny idea to say a bunch of false things and see if we can make some trades happen. But we won't do that to you guys. We're all about the facts here.
Mostly
the facts. We have an interesting episode today because it's a little more positive, I'd say.
Yeah, we've been saying there have been a lot of injuries usual for this year, but not so much this week.
Yeah, some good news is a lot of key players could be or are returning this week from their past injuries. So do you want to start there, or do you want to start with the couple injuries that we did have this week?
Yeah, let's start with a couple injuries, get them out of the way. I think that they're fairly easy in terms of fantasy football because the two big injuries were Carson Wentz and Hollywood Brown or Marquis Brown. Wentz, I don't think is a big deal because I don't think anybody's really playing him. And if you are, you're probably in our type of league where there's 14 or 12 teams.
I saw something the other day, and he's thrown a lot of touchdowns, which is helpful for fantasy, but he's also thrown a lot of interceptions. So Wentz is kind of this up and down, probably best as a streaming option anyway. If he has a good matchup, he might throw some touchdowns, but as a weekly starter, he probably wasn't a good option for you anyway. But regardless, he broke his finger on his throwing hand, his ring finger. I believe he had a little surgery shortly after the game, maybe the next day, and he's planned to be out for about 6 weeks.
Yeah. So it'll be a while. I mean, even then, he's not a start. Like I wouldn't start him as is. And the challenging thing with a hand surgery, and we'll cover this a lot more and when we talk about returning players with Dak Prescott, is the grip strength and the fine tune and the feel of it. So there's no way I could recommend playing Wentz at this point. Most likely
definitely not for the next 6 weeks. Yeah. The trouble with quarterback, and we talked about this with tight end, and even running back to an extent, who are you going to replace him with is a tough question because some of the stars, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, that historically have had good seasons, they're doing bad. Russell Wilson. Yeah. He's been on our report for a little bit. So, you obviously can't start Carson Wentz, but that's why people were starting Carson Wentz because some of those, higher profile names just haven't been producing fantasy wise. So it just stinks all around. I guess if you wanted a backup quarterback or an option to replace Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke is in line to start. But I've also heard they may, depending on how Heineke works out, they may start their draft pick. They had like a 5th round draft pick that might play. I don't know his name offhand. So, but either way, I don't think those are anything. Washington Commanders is probably not a great idea at this point.
Who's he going to throw to as well? Not a lot of options.
Yeah, they have good athletes with Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel. And I think week 1, Wentz had like 3 touchdowns and threw for like 350 yards. So people were like, oh, shoot, this team's going to be great. And then it's just been downhill from there. Yeah. So
Thomas should be coming back too.
That's their tight end, Logan Thomas. Yeah, good.
But so Wentz is done. Hollywood Brown is a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more tricky. So he had a foot injury, and when he was in Baltimore, he had a foot injury as well.
Was it a Liz Frank?
He had a Liz Frank sprain, and we talked about this before with
Najee Harris.
So he definitely has this recurring thing. I mean, it's going to be at least 6 weeks. So regardless for him, it's minimum 6 weeks. But if history serves true with Hollywood Brown, and if it seems as serious as it is, because he's the type of receiver, he's on the smaller side. He's like 5'9", 5'8", 170-ish pounds. So it's about speed and it's about change in direction with him. And obviously you need the foot to do that.
Yeah.
So he didn't come back in Baltimore when that happened. And I'd be very surprised if he makes a return for Arizona this season as well.
Yeah, the original report suggested he was out for the season. Then by the time, swelling goes down a little bit, they were able to get an MRI with maybe a little bit more accurate findings. They found that it may not be as severe as they initially thought, but we're still 6 weeks to maybe a season ender, like you said. So if there's ever a good time to have your number one receiver go down, it's when your true number one receiver is coming back from suspension. So Arizona has Deandre Hopkins, who's been out for this basically all season for I believe a performance-enhancing drug suspension. And it just so happens that this week he's allowed to come back. So if there's any silver lining, which there never is with injuries, at least Arizona is still getting a number one receiver back.
Doesn't really help you in fantasy if you have Hollywood Brown. But it does help you if you're talking about him coming back and Robbie.
If you were one that drafted DeAndre Hopkins and was stashing him until this point,
he's a must play.
Yeah, for sure at this point.
And Robbie Anderson.
The Cardinals traded for Robbie Anderson right after he had a little bit of a blowout with his coach over in Carolina. I think we mentioned last week that Carolina is kind of a mess right now.
They're a trash can right now.
I don't know. I would trust definitely DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore before you fall back to the Robbie Anderson side, only because Rondale Moore knows the offense. But Robbie Anderson's a good athlete. We'll see what happens in the upcoming weeks.
So it'll be good. The challenging thing with Arizona is they haven't had a solid running game. So the defenders can lock down whoever's playing receiver.
Right, because last week we talked about James Conner being out, who's their running back with the rib injury. And I believe he's still going to be out this week as far as we know. I haven't heard anything otherwise.
That's what it looks like. So challenging situation, but Marquis Brown, I wouldn't even put him on IR. At this point, I would drop him and not take up an IR spot. If you have it, go for it. But
if nobody else on your team is injured and you have an open injured reserve spot, save it, especially if you're in contention for the fantasy football playoffs later in the year, because they're anticipating like a week 14 maybe come back if it's on that shorter end of the time frame. But he might be one that you drop.
Another minor injury. I think we keep saying this. At this point, I'm pretty sure they're just putting any bumps and bruises he has just to justify his play. But Russell Wilson has mild hamstring irritation. I wouldn't even call it an injury.
Well, we talked about it last week. Russell Wilson with a lat injury or pain, or they said a small lat tear or something like that. And now he left last week's game with a little bit of hamstring pain. It's not a big deal. Anytime we see quarterbacks with injuries, we get a little bit on edge, especially one that hasn't been playing well anyway. So it's like, oh man, another thing.
I think the biggest injury Russell Wilson has right now is in his image, which has taken quite a beating.
Man, he was expected to do good things in Denver, and it just hasn't panned out.
He's getting hammered pretty hard.
You might not have been starting Russell Wilson anyway because of the previous injuries and his performance. But again, who are you going to start otherwise?
Look, I'm thrilled with Russell Wilson. I'm a huge I'm a huge fan of Russell Wilson.
Gene won his matchup last week by half a point. It was like 0.6 of a point. And it was because Russell Wilson could not connect with Courtland Sutton.
Correct. I was down by I was up by 3 points going into that matchup, and Linda, shout out, had Courtland Sutton going, and he could not get 3 points because Russell Wilson could not get him the ball for the 3 points.
Oh man!
So thank you, Russell. I hope you feel better, and I hope you get back whatever mojo you need to get back. But I'm glad it was not last week.
I'm playing Linda this week, so Courtland Sutton will probably go off for 26 points.
Russell Wilson will be back. Speaking of returning players, it is nice to see because there is a relatively big list of players coming back.
Yeah, so that's a positive spin on today's
positive
episode.
So let's go over 3 pretty much locks, I think, for coming back as much as it could be.
Meaning that they're for sure going to come back, or when they come back, they're a lock in your lineup.
Both. All the above.
Okay.
I think they are coming back. High probability. I mean, you never know in the NFL. But if they are coming back, they should be locks to play. And those three are Tua, Dak, and Jonathan Taylor. Yep. I would say Dak and Jonathan Taylor are more locks than Tua. But I feel like with the way Miami has been trending downward without Tua, because they lost, I'm pretty sure their last 3 games, when they had a really positive start.
Yeah.
And their offense has really struggled. So I feel like this is a statement game for them with Tua coming back, of them saying, hey, we're still a good team. So I think they're going to throw a lot. I think it's going to be a very offensive-minded game for them. So if you have Tua, if you have Waddle, if you have Tyreek Hill, thank you, Linda, again, then all 3 of those will be must-plays for me. I think you have to take that risk that they've been super conservative with Tua, as they should have, because they got so much blowback for how they handled his concussion and second concussion. So I think they were very conservative bringing him back, as they should have been. So I feel like if they're saying he's cleared to play, then he's truly ready to play. Yeah. And he's going to go off.
Yeah, that's a good point, because with how bad the injury looked and how bad the organization looked after
the whole NFL,
the
not
handling,
just the organization.
Yeah, true. They are not going to bring him back unless he's ready. Because if God forbid Tua came out last week and got a 3rd concussion, they might have canceled the whole NFL season. I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah, it'd be bad.
It would have been bad. So I have faith in Tua. I have faith in his offensive weapons with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think he's a good one to start this week.
Yep.
Then you also mentioned Dak Prescott, which the Cowboys did well without Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
But it's a definite upgrade getting him back regardless.
It's an ideal scenario for him to come back in. Like this is about as good.
They're playing the Detroit Lions. That's where I thought he was going.
Well, that's a big one too, because they give up a ton of points to opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But Cooper Rush had a great storyline that he was winning games. Jerry Jones was like, yeah, sure, we'll have a quarterback controversy. But last game really showed what the Cowboys are without Dak Prescott.
Because they played a good team. They played played Philly.
But more importantly, the NFL's had time to game plan for Cooper Rush and his strengths, which is not much, right? It's see a read, get the ball out.
Yeah.
He's not going to make plays with his legs. He's not going to extend plays. He's not going to make deep throws under pressure. He's not great at stepping into the pocket. And the NFL adjusted, and you saw what happened. And the Chargers don't have that great of a defense. They just created a good game plan.
The Eagles.
Oh, the Eagles.
Yeah.
But they created a great game plan. Granted, they started to come back and everything, but Dak offers an entirely different quarterback play.
Yeah,
he comes into it. He doesn't have the pressure of, well, this is what happens, right? He's like, you saw what happens with Cooper Rush when the NFL plans for him, and he comes in without the pressure of, now I truly have to prove myself.
Yeah, we see it. The top quarterbacks in the league, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen. They all have something in common: is they can all get out of the pocket and use their legs to extend plays. Dak Prescott may not be at that level anymore. I think he was at some point, maybe not quite that level, but you couldn't trust that he was just going to stay in there.
Right.
You had to acknowledge that he can use his legs to extend plays. And he will definitely do that more than Cooper Rush.
Mm-hmm.
So just that alone keeps defenses on their toes. So that'll be good for the Cowboys moving forward here.
So, I mean, they have all their weapons at this point. They have CeeDee Lamb. They have both their running backs with Elliott and Pollard. They have Galway that came back.
Yeah. Gallup
that came back.
I would start all your Cowboys if you got them. And
that's just a funny statement.
That's tough. That's tough for me to admit as a Detroit Lions fan, but the Lions defense is worse than the league, I'm pretty sure. It's just funny because their offense was the best in the league for the first 5 weeks. Any offense against the Detroit Lions defense has put up points. So start him if you got
Dak's
him.
coming back with a lot to prove. And again, I think they were conservative with him. But we said, I mean, that's our told you so, right? We said grip strength and hand is coming back will take longer than they thought. All the reports are, again, his grip strength is back. He has full feel where he needs to, so he's able to play the way he should. We'll see how he does after he gets hit in the hand a couple times. How that?
Yeah. When did he get hurt? Was he week 1? Like it was that long ago? It was
week 1.
It was week 1. Yeah. So initially they didn't know. They did the report, and Jerry Jones came out and said something along the lines of, "Yeah, he'll be back in 4 weeks." And we said, "Well, hold your horses on that."
Nope.
And now we're in week 7.
Yep.
So, yeah, we were right.
Maybe a week earlier.
We're so smart.
High five.
Yeah, good. Yeah, expect Dak back, and Jonathan Taylor is the next lineup lock there.
Yeah, I think he's out of those 3, he's the 100%. Looks like he's coming back, and he's a no-brainer play.
Yeah, he had a little bit of an ankle injury, I believe, a week or 2 ago. One thing with the Colts, and it works in their favor that he's ready to come back, is Nyheim Hines, who replaced him, got a concussion immediately. And then both of them were out last week. So then they were on their third string, Deion Jackson, who did really well.
Yeah.
But then he ended up getting a quad injury that game. So he's questionable this week. So it's a good thing Jonathan Taylor's coming back, because they were running out of options in Indiana there.
Yep. The other positive for Jonathan Taylor is Matt Ryan is actually starting to play well.
Yeah, I would say Matt Ryan's kind of like Carson Wentz this year. They can have these up and down games.
Yeah.
Last week was definitely an up game for the Cardinals, or the Colts passing offense there. So having Jonathan Taylor back is only going to help.
Yeah, I like where Matt Ryan is trending, so much so that I'm playing him over Derek Carr this week for me. I think with Jonathan Taylor coming back and him getting a good flow of the offense and the offensive line, I think Matt Ryan will have a pretty decent game this week. Plus, he's playing one of the worst passing offenses or defenses.
Who are they playing?
They are playing. It's a good question. I don't remember, but I remember it was ranked pretty low.
Well, we were talking about the Cowboys playing my Detroit Lions, and they have their starting running back, which might be coming back this week, in Deandre Swift. They've done the slow play with him since his injury. He had an ankle injury and a shoulder injury, so they were like, "Hey, why rush it? We know we have a bye week 6. Let's wait until after that to come back." So that's been the plan the whole time. I don't think there's been any setbacks. As far as we know, as long as he practices well this week, he should be starting this weekend. And in the first 4 weeks before he got hurt, he was a top 10 running back.
He was looking great.
So I think if you have DeAndre Swift, he should be fresh. I don't think he's one that you necessarily have to sit and wait and see how he goes. I think they did the slow play in his favor. So I think Swift will be a good one to start.
He's a true RB1. So he's definitely a must play. And again, Detroit sucks from a defensive side, but they have a great offense. So he's a pretty safe play. Matt Ryan is playing Indianapolis. That's ranked 28th in pass defense. So he's a pretty good play.
Matt Ryan is playing Tennessee Titans.
What did I say?
Indianapolis.
Yes. Matt Ryan on Indianapolis is playing Tennessee Titans, who are ranked 28th defense.
Although if he throws a bunch of interceptions, it'll kind of be like he's playing. So yeah, DeAndre Swift coming back for the Lions. That'll be nice. Technically, it's not guaranteed, but that's the plan. Is coming back.
He's still a maybe. Another maybe is Keenan Allen with the Chargers.
I have some thoughts on Keenan Allen.
You traded for him.
I traded for him. I did the whole buy low thing. Traded for him while he was injured, hoping he would come back at some point. And he hasn't come back yet. And next week, the Chargers have a bye. So I wonder if they will either hold him out one more week just to give him 2 more weeks to come back, because he's been kind of like teeter-tottering this. I'm coming back. Oh, I kind of.
And we talked about that too with hamstring injuries, because they linger and it's that deceleration ability to cut, and it's so critical for receivers because they have to stop on the dime and change directions when they're running their route. So it's very hard for receivers.
Yeah. So if he comes back, which they are anticipating it in some capacity, I'm not starting Keenan Allen, even though he's on my team. I think if he comes back, he might be on a snap count, just reintegrating into football speed and impact and things like that. That way they can go into the bye week knowing what they have and build from there. So Keenan Allen, if you're really struggling for wide receivers and you have him on your team, you can play him if he's playing, because he's if he's healthy, he's a clear number one receiver for the Chargers and for in general. He's just a great one. But know what you can expect, and you can expect probably a snap count at some point if he plays this week.
Yeah, and I think going a little bit deeper, that's been very evident is if you have Mike Williams, I think he becomes a different receiver with Keenan Allen coming back because he's been underperforming like crazy, but that's because the Chargers don't have any other receiver options. So all the attention goes to Mike Williams, and he not only it's evident that he's underperforming, not just because of the catches that he goes for, because he's great at contested catches, but Herbert's not even looking his way. He's covered so much. So I think he's going to open up a ton when Keenan Allen comes back. So that's a big thing to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah. Sometimes people think, oh, there's the number one receivers coming back, the other receivers are going to take a hit. But sometimes that's not the case. If the number one draws more attention from the defense, sometimes the number two can get open more. So,
yeah. And Mike Williams says wide receiver one.
Oh yeah, he could go to other teams and be their number one guy.
But if you're the one covered all the time, it doesn't matter how good you are. You're just not going to get the attempts.
Yep.
Closing it out.
One more guy coming back, another hamstring.
Yeah, Darren Waller.
A person with a hamstring injury. Be patient first. Darren Waller. He's another tight end that's been underperforming all year, like most tight ends compared to Kelsey and Andrews. But he's can be a superstar. So we'll see how he does coming back from his little hamstring injury.
Yeah, and we thought he'd be playing at a higher level than he is now because of Devontae Adams coming in and the passing offense exploring, and Jacobs, the running back, playing lights out. So they have the offensive packages. Derek Carr is underperforming a little bit too, but it's surprising how underperforming Darren Waller is. So this could be a good opportunity for him to step into that offense and get some touchdowns.
I saw something cool this morning. Apparently when Derek Carr was drafted, there were 3 quarterbacks drafted before him. I don't remember their names, and that will tell you that they maybe chose poorly when they drafted Derek Carr after that. But something along the lines of those 3 quarterbacks total have thrown 182 touchdowns, and Derek Carr alone has thrown 208. So Derek Carr can get the job done, that's for sure. I think Teddy Bridgewater was one of those 3. Might have been Teddy Bridgewater. I don't remember the other ones. But either way, Derek Carr can get the job done when he is able to, and he has the weapons around him. Maybe this second half of the season, because they were on a bye last week. Yeah. Maybe the second half of the season for them, they can kick things into gear.
Teddy Bridgewater also was forced into action.
Yeah, for Tua, right?
No, he was doing under his own concussion protocol, but then they had, I can't remember the third string quarterback that was playing this week, but he got injured.
Oh, so Teddy Bridgewater came back
in the game. Yeah. Miami.
Oh, did you see that they supposedly the Miami football stadium was built in a way that the away sidelines is like 20 to 30 degrees hotter than the home side. The way the sun sets or rises at that time at the 1:00 games, the other side gets all the sun. And they showed a side-to-side comparison of the thermostat on the away time and the away side and the home side. And the away side was like 110 degrees, and the home side was 80.
If only they put so much time into actually fielding a good team.
Yeah, they're trying. They're trying.
Well, they have the weapons on offense, that's for sure.
Yep.
And they beat my Ravens, so at this point, I guess
that's true.
Did you see that statistic that the Ravens have trailed a total of 120 seconds? All season long, and they're 3-3.
Is that what they're now 3-3? Yeah. I joked with Gene that it was a good week because the Lions didn't lose, but they were on a bye. That's why they didn't lose.
And on that positive note, hope that was helpful. Good luck in fantasy this week. Linda, I'm not sorry for beating you by 0.6 points. And we'll catch you again next week on the weekly injury report from Recharge. Da-da-da. Da-da-da.